I know that straight out of the gate, I'm going to get hate and anger and claims that there is no pay or gender gap. It's all down to life choices. Well, straight off the bat, let us get to some good news. That shows that a certain group of women pretty much will be unaffected by the wage gap. White, childless millennials. It's estimated that in the next 2 to 3 years, childless millennial women and men will get paid the exact same amount to do the exact same job. So, victory! Yeah, not quite finished. If you're a millennial, the wage gap is much more likely to affect your mother than your sister, meaning your family had and still has a lower standard of living than it should have thanks to the fact that your mom has ovaries. This also means that your inheritance will be lower than it should, so if just for selfish reasons, or maybe just because you love your mama, you should listen up. Once the childless millennial has children, she too will be affected by it, just not nearly as badly as the older generations. The current wage gap based on gender is shrinking slowly. It's currently at 85% in 2015. 7% of that is based on what is considered life and career choices. However, 8% is unable to account for that. Psychology and sociology studies point more toward both known and unknown bias. Remember, the wage gap is a measure of difference in pay for doing the exact same job, not the difference that women or other minorities make for going into a different field of work. So first off, let's get that 7% out of the way. The life choices, parenting, and career choices. Parenting and career choices are often decided more by the society than the individual. Everyone assumes the woman is going to take all the job sacrifice, while the man works the late hours and gets berated for being a slacker if he wants to take a more active role in his children's life. This is why, for so many decades, women just automatically had custody in most states. Once we reached a point in society where children stopped being property, as prior to that, the men automatically got the kids. Feminist organizations, the creature which poisons everything, worked hard to reverse both, and now men are equally likely to get kids in most states. This reliance on women as the child rearer ensures they are viewed as less reliable in scheduling. They can work less late hours and appear less career-minded than their male counterparts. They take more time off and get less experience than their male counterparts that can work without distraction to aim for promotions. Lots of data shows that dads, especially modern dads, really want to be more involved with their kids' lives. I linked a podcast from the Diane Rehm Show talking to men and women working to change workplace policies to allow men to actually get to spend more time to bond with and take care of their own kids instead of just the women doing it. The way they fixed this in Scandinavia was to assign mandatory paid family leave for all genders. You got more for a birth or an adoption, but if you need to take care of your aging parent, you could use it. If you needed to pick up your kids, you can use it as well. Prior to that, you got a vacation time or time off was offered, but you could split the amount between the two of you, so men would get the stink eye from their coworkers if they took an equal amount as their wife. Suddenly, once vacation time was made available to everyone, you were viewed as an idiot for not taking it. And kids now get to bond equally with both parents as opposed to mostly with mom and not seeing dad very often. In the US, we have no mandatory paid leave for anything involving family, not even pregnant mothers, and many feminist organizations, the scourge of the devil, are working to try and get that into law. They are also working with many high-tech industries to get paid family leave so they can get the best and brightest people. Allowing parents of any gender to bond with their children and care for them will ensure that both will have equal chance of getting a raise, and society will be happier, healthier, and better bonded with the children they raise. Everyone benefits from a mentally healthier society. Even if you never plan on having children yourself, you will still have to live with other people that vote and could commit crimes that affect you. That will kill the 7% wage gap, and everyone wins. Now on to the 8%. Bias. Our hiring system on its own is so messed up and backwards, it's not even funny. In attempts to be fair, laws and company policies are in place requiring a company to have to put the job out on the market and interview at least 3 people to reduce bias anytime a company wants to fill a new position or advance a person to a new position. Of course, quite often, they make the job specifications so specific to the person they want to hire internally that none of the other people getting interviewed have a chance in the first place. The outsider person is either overqualified, underqualified, or not a good fit. On top of that, it ensures that most of the job applications you fill out or interviews you go to aren't real jobs, therefore wasting everyone's time and ultimately money. This is not how you counter bias. This is how you put a band-aid on countering bias that ends up wasting everyone's very valuable time. What we must do instead is blind names to resumes and other science-based methods. I was all for Ban the Box bill, which prevents forcing convicted ex-felons from putting that status on their resume, killing their chances of getting into an interview before they got to know the person, ensuring the person probably would be more desperate and return to crime. They have done this in several states. If you were a white felon, this was great for you. If you were a black man with a black-sounding name with no criminal record, this was disastrous. The gap between black and white men getting a job went from 7% to 45% as people saw a black-sounding name and assumed criminal. Studies have shown over and over and over that when faced with a resume of a fake man and a fake woman with the exact same resume, the man is much more likely to be called in for an interview. This study has been repeated many, many times. Scientific papers with female names on them get way more nasty criticism than male names, even if the papers with male names are horrible. This is why many women are using their first initials in papers to blind readers to their gender, and it has worked. The comparison effect is a cognitive bias where, on its own merits, looks better or worse than it does when compared with another thing. Repeatedly in job interviews, when a man is analyzed and found to be lackluster, but then when compared with a woman, he is viewed more positively. When a woman is analyzed and found to be competent, but then compared with a man, she is viewed more negatively. And that just sums up this entire election. On its own merits, Trump is horrible, and Hillary is a competent and the most experienced, qualified politician for the job, even if she's not what you want and you consider her untrustworthy. When compared to each other, she's suddenly the most horrible, corrupt bitch in the entire world, and Trump doesn't really look as bad as he really should. Another method to counter the 8% bias Massachusetts just passed is forbidding you to have to tell your new employer your previous pay amount. Something I was completely oblivious to being a thing, but if you made less in the past than other people, it will haunt you for the rest of your life if you continue to work in industries that demand this, as their offering will not be based on what is fair in their company, but based on what you are used to getting. There are other methods for blinding bias that are used in science that need to be used in HR as soon as possible. The podcast below from Freakonomics has more that are listed. Our HR system is completely messed up. Our computer filtering process to find people to do a job ends up with companies saying they can't find people to do a job, while people on the other end are saying there are no jobs because the filtering systems are too rigid and can't see how certain skills may be similar and capable of transferring. Most companies for the longest time didn't really want to invest in their people to ensure that they can fit into a job, even though in the long run labor studies show the company does a lot better, but CEOs and many stock traders are paid and rewarded more to think in the short term. Wage or racial gap is nothing white men should feel guilty about. It is a system that hurts everyone, including white men. As I said, it ensured that if both your parents worked, you had a lower standard of living. You probably saw your dad a lot less, and your inheritance will probably be lower. And all of us should demand a restructure that prevents bias that have been shown to be affected just based on alphabetical order and how strongly the brain remembers things in order of how it experienced it. And I'm saying this as a white male with hard to forget long red hair with both my first and last name right near the beginning of the alphabet. America's current hiring and promotion system is wasteful, abusive, and demeaning. Since the recession, I have spent 1 year's worth of my life searching for jobs on and off, and I'm one of the lucky ones. Hiring is such a hassle on both sides that they take even longer to hire someone than they need to, while you're trying to keep your nose above water, while they often end up stringing you along just for a quota. Even if you're the type of person who is certain that women or minorities have hiring or work advantages over white men in spite of all the opposing data, or you fear this will be happening in the future as society changes, this will still benefit you by reducing bias in hiring. This will also ensure that you get to pay less or nothing at all to support your real or hypothetical wife or mother in the future, and everyone's standard of living is higher. Mandatory paid family leave will ensure that we all have healthier, happier society overall, even if your parents are dead and you are the most antisocial misanthrope in the world, because you will still have to interact with people and could be affected by the crime they commit.